Hello and welcome to our public affairs program here at Catamount Radio. I'm Brian Collamore, and I host the 1-hour program each and every Sunday. We call the show Catamount Community Connection, and we'll be speaking with community leaders from the business, professional, nonprofit, and political arenas. The goal of the program to inform and make our listeners aware of things that are going on in Rutland County and throughout the state, things that will affect everyone listening in some cases, whether it's a new law that goes into effect or a regulation. Other programs will focus just on events that we hope are fun and folks will want to know about. And for today's program, we're happy to welcome in Hilary Solomon with the Poultney Mettowee Conservation District, and also Jerremy Jones, who is one of the trustees for the Lake St. Catherine Association. And I'd like to welcome you both into the show today.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, I'm Hilary Solomon with the Poultney Mettowee Natural Resources Conservation District. I actually grew up out west, and out west where there's county government, the conservation districts are they're much stronger. They have more funding. They're a sort of more integral part of everyday life, especially for the agricultural community. I went to school out west initially and then did some graduate work down south and moved to Vermont in my late 20s. I always wanted to work for a conservation district. They're a group that acts as a liaison between landowners and state government or federal funding. And so we try to help, whether it's a forested landowner or a farmer or a town, identify a soil health problem or a water quality issue, and sort of figure out how to solve that problem. We're non-regulatory. We help them get funding. So it's a really nice place where we help landowners out. We help identify and solve water quality issues with local landowners.
Yeah, and I remember talking to you on more than one occasion. The fact of the matter is you're not regulatory, so you come at a situation a little differently than some of our agencies in state government. And I think for that reason, people are a little bit more welcoming when someone from a conservation district shows up. In other words, you really are not there to enforce any regulation or sort of be a negative situation. You're there to help them. And I think that makes a big difference. I really do. So I've always been a big fan as well, and we did get a little bit of money for you last year with the Institutions Committee and also our Agriculture Committee. Those are the two that I serve on, and hopefully, I don't know what's coming down the pike in terms of federal funding anymore. You know, we had some really, really generous amounts of money with the ARPA and the other stuff that came through, but that money's all gone. So we're going to have to come up with something else. So let's turn our attention to Jerremy Jones, who was a trustee of the Lake St. Catherine Association. I was fortunate enough to be able to attend your annual meeting. It's a couple of months ago now. I don't remember the exact date, but that was my first time, I think, there. Hilary and I had gone to one or some other meeting, I remember. Gosh, it's got to be 8 or 9 years ago, but I don't think that was a Lake St. Catherine Association meeting. It was something else. Bill Steinmetz was still doing stuff for people. Anyway, how did you wind up in Vermont, and how did you wind up as a trustee of the Lake St. Catherine Association?
Hi, everybody. My name is Jerremy Jones. My grandfather bought a camp on Lake St. Catherine in 1957. So I've been coming up here since I was a baby. My dad was a young kid when he started coming up. So it's been in our family for many, many years, and Lake St. Catherine is very important to our family. And so in 2017, my wife and I moved up here full-time, and we live on the lake full-time. So I really wanted to get involved and see what I could do to help. And then there's a great organization that's been on the lake. We just celebrated our 70th anniversary for the Lake St. Catherine Association on August 31st, 1953 it was founded. So it was great to get involved and start volunteering with the Lake St. Catherine Association, and been part of the group since 2016, I believe. And it's been great to work with folks that really care about the lake, and also connecting with residents around the lake and others who really care about water quality and taking care of our natural resources.
I think there are 15 trustees, if I remember.
Yep, and we're all volunteers.
Yep.
And so we work year round. We have meetings in the summertime, but we're working year round on all kinds of issues, working to get grants from environmental groups like the Lake Champlain Basin Program. The state, the towns also help us out. So we coordinate all of that to do everything that we can to preserve, protect, and maintain Lake St. Catherine.
You're in a little different position than I think Hilary is, although maybe not. You have both out-of-state folks and full-time local folks represented in that association, right? So you have to sort of, I mean, everybody's probably got the same goal in mind, but there's still got to be a little balancing act, I would imagine, between folks who, in essence, come up for the summer and don't stay the rest of the year, and then those who do.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, and it's understandable, there's folks that live there year-round like I do, and then there's folks that come from all around the country to beautiful Lake St. Catherine to spend time here. And, you know, it's sometimes it's hard to reach the folks that, you know, they work all week, they want to come up, have fun, and go home, and get back to work, and then come back up. So sometimes it's hard to get folks involved, but like you had mentioned earlier, and Hilary had mentioned earlier, with the great relationship that we have with Poultney Mettowee, we can talk about some of the projects that we're working on for water quality, but Lakewise is one of those where we have great outreach with the folks around the lake. Hilary's team comes out and works with them to make their shoreline lake friendly. So we're seeing more and more of that outreach, and the education that we're doing is really making a connection, and we're building momentum around the lake to make sure that we're always thinking about what's the best thing that we can do for the lake, not just make our lawn go all the way to the shoreline, which obviously is good because that allows pollutants and runoff to get into the lake.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. What was at one time probably pretty accepted and everybody does it, so why not? You know, as things progress, you decide, well, wait a minute, maybe that's not such a great idea, because as you say, fertilizer and phosphorus and all of that stuff literally just gets dumped in the lake. And I imagine most lakes in Vermont face similar challenges, but I know each lake has its own unique character too. And, Lake Bombazine has just gone through a whole bunch of discussion about whether or not to use a certain chemical, and whether and you folks at Lake St. Catherine have gone through that as well. So what makes Lake St. Catherine a little bit more unique than some of the other lakes in the state? Well,
we're a very developed lake shoreline wise. It's also very recreational. So we can be very different than some other lakes that don't have developed shorelines, don't have a lot of camps around them. We do have invasive species like Eurasian water milfoil that we work to control. It's one of those things that we're never going to get rid of, but we work to control it. And we also work to control other invasive species that are around, that are in other lakes, like our neighboring lakes like Lake Bombazine, that have Asian clams and zebra mussels. So we have a greeter program that is at the boat launch and at the state park. So when boats come in and when they leave, we check to make sure that they're not bringing in anything or leaving with anything. So there's just so much to consider, and so many things you need to worry about to keep the lake as healthy as it can be.
I know you folks had a meeting on September 1st to come up with projects that you want to tackle over the next 12 months, or maybe more than 12 months. So what happened? What are the results, and what are we looking forward to?
Yeah, we had a great meeting, and I think one of the most challenging things to do when you're working in the water quality realm is really get meaningful public interaction and allowing the public to really help with the prioritization process for these projects. So we had a great turnout. We had 36 people that live around the lake or worked with the towns or worked on the town road crews attend the meeting. We went project by project. We had identified about 50 projects a couple of years ago. And at a similar meeting, a couple of years ago, probably 2 years ago, at a similar meeting, we met with the local residents who were interested in the projects, and we prioritized the top 6. We developed designs for those projects and have since implemented those. So we were looking at the rest of the projects, the 44 others on the list. And we met with this group. We had slides for each project. We went over with the town road crews which of the road projects had been completed, which we were happy to say they had completed all of the projects that we had identified as high priority in our local road system. So that's the Poultney and Wells road crews. Had updated all of those roads, had, stone line ditches, had changed the grading practices. So that was fantastic. So we were left then with a group of projects that this group at the meeting prioritized, and I can go through a couple of highlights if you like.
Sure.
Or we could take turns going through some highlights.
Either way.
I think the other exciting thing was how much input we had even before the meeting, and I might let Jerremy speak to that a little bit because he collected that information. But we came to this meeting both with projects that had been previously identified and also with some ideas from the residents about areas where they had seen stormwater inputs to the lake that were significant. So significant amounts of dirty water running into the lake at these sort of discrete locations where we might be able to address that runoff.
Yeah, so Hilary's talking about the Stormwater Master Plan, which Hilary and her group and Fitzgerald Environmental did a ton of work back in 18 and 19, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
To identify areas around the lake where stormwater was coming in from these rainstorms, which are getting worse, unfortunately, as we've seen this year especially. We were able last year to get a grant from the Lake Champlain Basin Program to design 10 to 12 projects that were identified to mitigate phosphorus and runoff coming into the lake. So it was great. We had this meeting and lots of people showed up. And over the years that we've been promoting these clean water initiatives at the lake, as Hilary mentioned, we've been getting great feedback from residents around the lake where they may have noticed something that wasn't seen or maybe wasn't an issue at the time when the original Stormwater Master Plan was created for Lake St. Catherine. And they've been providing videos and photos and descriptions, and we're able to then go out and talk with them and review those areas and actually see with these very powerful short, sometimes they're short storms, but they're so quick that it's we need to slow down the water. We need to infiltrate the water so it's not carrying all this stuff into the lake. And they were able to identify those, and we've been able to work those into these projects. So there's, you can definitely see that folks around the lake are starting to say, hey, we can really make a difference. And, they come to us and to Poultney Mettowee with that information, and then we can try to get funding or incorporate it into a project.
So we went from 50, then you took 6 out and got 44 left. What was decided at the meeting to how many are there coming up this year?
So we have, it's a little complicated because some are just the projects that were identified in the original Stormwater Master Plan. They're being moved onto the list to be designed. Then some of the projects, we took input from the audience and the residents, and we sort of redesigned what we were doing to try to better address these broader concerns. So we have 2 projects. One's on Ferncliff Road, and the other is Channel Drive, where we're going to do a little bit more of a scoping assessment to really look at sort of a larger area where we may have either missed things before or where things are exacerbated now. And so one of them already has multiple projects in that area. So we're going to look at it as one space and then design those projects with sort of each other in mind. The other one, we are just starting from scratch. We're going to take this and have it be a scoping project on Channel Drive. We're going to look at all of the runoff on Channel Drive. That will be a project in and of itself, so it won't end up with a design coming out of it or 4 designs or whatever we end up discovering. But that will then move into another grant that we have, which is the Lake Watershed Action Plan, which is also really exciting and has a longer time frame. And so it also has some funds to do project development. These are essentially going to be new projects, not really from the Stormwater Master Plan. This location is from the Stormwater Master Plan. We have better information now. So we will be, whatever projects come out of this scoping study would be developed through this Lake Watershed Action Plan, which is an exciting tool, I think, to bring together all this work that we're doing under one report, one plan. And then we can all be sort of unified as we move forward under this one plan, which will have a mix of projects, discrete projects, and also programs, like program areas like the Greeter program that are worth supporting.
Yeah, so that's what's exciting about the Watershed Action Plan. We received a grant from, again, Lake Champlain Basin Program, who have been a fantastic partner to both us and to Poultney Mettowee over the years. All the great stuff that we're doing, these individual projects, that's the Watershed Action Plan is kind of the umbrella that's going to take all of these together and make sure they're all working together and getting the most out of every project. So it's really exciting. Field work just started this year in early May. We went on a boat ride and did a shoreline assessment. Hilary just reported recently they went out on started inspecting the wetlands of Lake St. Catherine, which was really exciting to hear about. And what's exciting about that project to me is we're also working with a lake scientist, a limnologist, and we hope to develop lots of in-lake testing. So things that are concerning for lakes currently are increasing salt levels from salting the roads. One of the new things that they're testing for this year that's part of another program from the state of Vermont called the Lake Monitoring Program, where for 40 years somebody on Lake St. Catherine has been going to the same spot and taking a water sample weekly or bi-weekly between Memorial and Labor Day. So we have 40 years of information about the lake, testing for phosphorus and water clarity. So one of the new things that they're testing for this year is actually caffeine, which you would think, why would you test for caffeine? And that's because of septic systems. So septics leaching into the lake could be providing caffeine. So working with the limnologist, we're really excited about all the testing that we can come up with for the lake to see how we're doing, see if anything's coming down the road that should be concerning. So just lots of great stuff going on with the Watershed Action Plan.
Okay. We're talking with Hilary Solomon from the Poultney Mettowee Conservation District and Jerremy Jones from the Lake St. Catherine Association. I did want to just, we're going to take a break, I guess, first, but you had mentioned the septic situation because for the most part, we've been talking about stormwater runoff, but I got to think that there's also some issues with some rather old kind of leach fields that are surrounding most lakes in the state, I would imagine. And I did want to mention about the salt because I don't know how else we get rid of, if we are going to go to work and we're going to go to school and we're going to move and be able to move our bodies from one place to another, we have to have some method of moving snow out of the way during certain months. And years ago, these used to be these big roller machines that it literally packed the snow down. They didn't plow necessarily, but those are long gone. Then I think we used coal for a while, which gave traction on the snow, but that's obviously not the most perfect solution. So we've, I guess, gotten to the salt situation, and then now we have brine. We don't just put salt down, we put this liquid mixture down. But I got to think that some of that definitely winds up in our bodies of water.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the things that people are recommending to start looking at because they can obviously have a detrimental effect on a freshwater lake. It was interesting. The road crews at the Stormwater Master Plan meeting that we had talked about how they're trying to reduce the salt and actually propose some things that we can do to help them to use less salt, but also still make the road safe. I think one area in particular was Ferncliff Road that Hilary had previously mentioned. There's some tree cover there that isn't allowing the sun to get down to the road. So if we can do some trimming there, some minimal but safe trimming of the trees there to allow the sun, that would really help, and they would be able to use less salt. So definitely stuff we're going to work with.
Yeah, interesting. And of course, the salt was mixed with sand to make our cars and trucks be able to navigate as well. And I'm not so sure that's a great idea because, again, if you have some sort of runoff from a big storm, that sand is going to wind up at the bottom of the lake as well. Mm-hmm. So lots of challenges. Okay, let's take a break, and we will be back with Hilary and Jerremy in just a sec.
Hey, it's John Tesh, and we hear so much about probiotics these days, right? They're good bacteria that help support digestive, immune, and our overall health. by maintaining the balance of our gut microbiome. Well, my friends at Bigelow have the #1 probiotic tea in the U.S. It's their Bigelow Lemon Ginger plus Probiotics Herbal Tea, followed by their green tea with ginger plus probiotics. And studies show that sipping teas with probiotics can support your immune function. So why not make Bigelow tea part of your health journey at bigelowtea.com.
Hi, this is Dr. Brad Schaefer. As a podiatrist, I can tell you no two people's feet are alike, which is why I recommend Dr. Scholl's custom fit orthotic inserts. They're customized for your feet, so you get a unique solution your feet really need, not just a one-size-fits-all insole. They're clinically proven to provide pain relief for achy feet, knees, lower back, plantar fasciitis, and heels. Take the Dr. Scholl's custom fit orthotics assessment in Walmart today, now in the foot care aisle.
98.1 JJR. Hey, it's Terry J from The Morning Show. You already listen to 98.1 JJR at work. Now, get paid for it. It's the 98.1 JJR $1,000 workday payday. We have 4 chances a day for you to score $1,000 cash. Just listen for the super secret keyword at 9, 11, 1, and 3, and you can be $1,000 richer. It's the 98.1 JJR $1,000 workday payday.
Vintage Market Days returned to Vermont, October 6th, 7th, and 8th at the Vermont State Fairgrounds. One of Country Living Magazine's 7 flea markets and barn sales you won't want to miss. This 3-day vintage market includes industrial salvage, chippy furniture and home decor, vintage-inspired jewelry and clothing, live music, and food trucks, all in a charming setting. Vintage Market Days, Friday, October 6th through Sunday the 8th at the Vermont State Fairgrounds.
Yo, J Balvin here. Verizon just hooked me up with a new iPhone 15 Pro with titanium. How can you get one? By switching to my plan at your Verizon store, get the amazing new iPhone 15 Pro on them. When you trade in any iPhone, any model, any condition, guaranteed. Now listen to my new song, Dientes, on your way to get the new iPhone 15 Pro.
Don't miss out. Switch to my plan from Verizon today. It's your Verizon. $999.99, 128 GB only. Device payment purchase or full retail purchase with new smartphone line on unlimited ultimate plan required. Less $1,000 trade-in or promo credit applied over 36 months. Promo credit ends if eligibility requirements are no longer met. 0% APR.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Babbel. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at babbel.com/TNC.
We're going abroad for the first time in years. To Spain. So we started using Babbel.
And started learning Spanish fast.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿De dónde eres?
¿De dónde eres? In just 3 weeks, we're starting to have conversations in Spanish.
Babbel, language for life. And now try Babbel for free by texting radio to 64,000. Text radio to 64,000.
We're back with Hilary Solomon and Jerremy Jones on Catamount's Community Connection. I guess one thing I wanted to ask, at the meeting on September 1st, were there people that were kind of lobbying for a particular project, kind of getting together? Did you take a vote? I mean, how was it all decided? I can imagine there's a lot of different opinions from, what'd you say, there were 36 people there, something like that? So not everybody had the same exact plan, I don't think. How did that eventuate?
Well, there was a lot of support for the projects, the top projects. And I will say the top project is on Westlake Road. It's one that almost got designed last time. It was already, almost one of the top ones that went into our first batch. It had multiple neighbors, landowners, family members from out of town show up at the meeting. They were very excited about having this. It's basically a cross culvert that brings water from one side of Westlake Road onto their property. It's very eroded. It's caused a lot of damage. This, high flowing waters that come through that culvert. And then it runs down a property boundary. So you have 2 properties that have erosion and sedimentation and sort of all those issues of quick moving water on their property. So both properties plus all the neighbors would really like to see this addressed. So that was our highest priority and kind of the most fun to have this whole group here, very enthusiastic at the meeting.
Yeah. I liken it, maybe it's a kind of a crazy idea, to like the top 40 countdown at one time. How many people bought that record this week? And right. They're pushing, we want it to be number 4 next week, not number 3. So I didn't know if it ever got to that point at the meeting.
But, well, that one had a lot of enthusiastic followers. And I think the Channel Drive, doing an assessment on Channel Drive also has a lot of support. We had multiple landowners contact Jerremy over the years and contact me as well. And we had been out there a couple of times, but to look at it all as one drainage, we haven't done, and that'll be great.
And it was good to hear from folks who couldn't make it. We had a lot of input from folks that said, I really wanted to come. It was at 10 a.m. on a Friday, so some people couldn't make it. But we got a lot of feedback from email as well, and Channel Drive and Ferncliff were two roads and projects that people were really concerned about.
Okay, great. I know the two organizations work together on a lot of projects, so we can talk about some of those sort of similar things. But I wanted to mention the funding as well. Hilary mentioned that the legislature has certainly been able to allocate some funds for certain things. And you just told me about a LEAP program, a Lake Education Action Program, which has got a history. It isn't like a brand new thing, but it's still going on. Maybe you can explain that one.
Yeah, we started the Lake Education Action Program, I believe it was 2003. It was right as I first started working for the district. And so the idea is that it was a little bit workforce development. We have high school interns. The interns would work, originally we had a couple of sessions. So we would have a couple of 2-week sessions with different groups of interns. We would teach them, it started as it would start with an educational piece. We would teach them about lake water quality issues, runoff, erosion, how phosphorus and nutrients get into the lake and what happens to them once they're there, and how we can stop that flow of nutrients, sediment, and stormwater into the lake through various practices. And then the idea was to go out, meet with landowners. They had this little door-to-door. They would hand out informational packets and then find landowners who were interested in implementing some of these projects on their property. So we would plant shoreline buffers. We would install small rain gardens. It's expanded over the years. So now we also install infiltration steps, which are a nice way to get to access your shoreline in one place, not across the whole shoreline. So you can have a buffer, and then your steps, which also allow for infiltration of stormwater. So that program started quite a while ago. It was funded through Lake Champlain Sea Grant, which is hosted up at University of Vermont. It started with a very tiny budget, and that program's grown over the years. The Sea Grant has recognized that as a valuable program, and that's expanded to other areas of the state and also over to the New York side in the Lake Champlain watershed. And then we've also partnered it with a new grant that the Lake St. Catherine Association received that combines lake-wise assessments with implementation projects. And I can let Jerremy talk a little bit about the beginnings of that, and then we can go back to sort of how these two work together and how it's really nice to have implementation funds for small projects. That is very challenging funding to get from standard grant sources. These are not agricultural lands. They're not big stormwater projects. We're talking about small projects on individual pieces of property around the lake. So
the Lake-Wise program that Hilary mentioned was started by the DEC in, I think, 2014. And I think the first assessment was 2018 on Lake St. Catherine.
That's right. Yeah, that's correct.
And it's expanded greatly since then over the years. We've partnered again. Well, I'll mention them again, the Lake Champlain Basin Program. We've applied for funding from them to help fund this project, about $20,000 a year. Hilary's group does a fantastic job with her crew every year, working with landowners to kind of a bigger version of LEAP, where they can do plantings, they can do stormwater mitigation projects on the property, working directly with the landowners. And what's cool about the Lake-Wise program is that there's 4 criteria, and you go through a checklist to see how the property scores as far as being best management practices for being lake friendly on your shoreline. And the team works with the landowner if there are any issues that they can help them with plantings or things that they can do on their shoreline. And this is all free, covered by the grant. And properties that meet the criteria get a Lake-Wise award. It's a plaque that was designed and that the DEC offers to folks who do, their property does meet the criteria. So over the years, we've done about 100 assessments, I'd say, on Lake St. Catherine. And we learned at a recent Lake-Wise training that Lake St. Catherine is leading the way in the state. We had over 10% of all the assessments that have been done since the program started, which was pretty cool to see that our lake community and our residents were really involved and wanted to be part of this project. We keep working on it every year. And of those 100 assessments. We have 26 award winners on Lake St. Catherine. So our long-term goal is if you can get 15% of all your Lakeshore residents to win the Lakewise Award, then your lake wins the Gold Lakewise Award as a whole. So we're working towards that. We'd need about 85 or so properties to win the award, but that's our long-term goal. Other lakes have won that award. Smaller lakes like Lake Iroquois up north just recently won that. So that's our long-term goal, and it has a definite effect on water quality. The DEC recently shared some data with us that our phosphorus levels are what they would consider significantly decreasing since 2000, and our water clarity has been increasing since we had a dip. Unfortunately, in about 1997 to 98, an invasive fish called the alewife was introduced into the lake, and based on their activities in the lake, it decreases your water clarity. So we had a dip, but we've been slowly building back, and last year was actually our best year since the alewife infestation.
Now, when you say was introduced, was it a deliberate introduction or it just happened?
Alewife is a bait fish that is used for fishing, so most likely it was introduced through fishing.
And how do you get rid of it?
You don't. Unfortunately, there aren't really any good control methods. Well, I say that Fish and Wildlife does stock Lake St. Catherine with brown trout and rainbow trout, and they like to eat the alewives, so that I'm sure that has helped. And we are seeing our water clarity increase. So, we're hoping that the things that we're doing, the fish stocking is helping in that regard.
Okay. Talk about some funding here. And again, we're speaking with Hilary Solomon from the Poultney Mettowee Conservation District and Jerremy Jones, who's a trustee from the Lake St. Catherine Association. I assume dues are paid to the association, so that's obviously some funding. But you seem to have your fingers on a lot of different grants and available funding. And Hilary, I'm sure, has similar grants, but we also look to the legislature on occasion for some of your funding, not unfortunately for enough, probably, in your opinion, but we're doing what we can. How are all these things funded?
So, thank you for bringing that up. It's really important. Our organization is volunteer run, so we rely on membership dues from folks around the lake. Our goal this year was to hit 400 members. We ask for $100 from a camp owner to be a member of the association. We're only 8 away from our goal, so if anybody's listening and wants to become a member, now is the time to help us get to our goal of 400. As I mentioned, Lake Champlain Basin Program has been a great resource for us, funding multiple programs at the lake. But that funding is project-based, so the money comes in, we do the project, and it goes out. So things that we need to do, like invasive species management, invasive species control, things like that, need to come from our members. We do get allocations from the town of Wells and Poultney, which we're very thankful for. And we also apply to the state for their grant and aid program. Last year, as you may know, the funding was cut from $450,000 to $350,000. But as Hilary mentioned, her group, the Natural Conservation Districts, and FOVLAP, the Federation of Vermont Lakes and Ponds, both advocated to the legislature, and $500,000 was added into the budget for aquatic invasive species prevention and control. So we'll have access to those funds. We'll have to apply for grants to get that. But those are all the places that we look for to help get funding for our organization and donations. We had, I will mention, we had a very generous donation from somebody from Poultney who donated some land to us to help us support our mission, and we were able to sell that land and get the proceeds from that. So very generous. We have some very generous donors around the lake as well.
And what about you, Hilary?
Well, we are mostly grant funded. We receive the occasional donation. We don't really solicit donations, although we do appreciate them very much. The towns support us with allocations. which we try to make sure we use back in those towns, whether it's water quality monitoring or helping them with grant applications, or however we can help them as we go through the year. But largely we're grant funded, so we work with state and federal and independent private sort of funding sources. My favorite sort of funding source to talk about, because it's a little bit unusual, is we work with Pure Projet, who is out of both, they have offices in Singapore and offices in Paris, France. And they use funds like when you pick up your towel at the hotel and hang it over the shower rack, the hotels donate a penny to a tree planting fund that they manage. And so we receive funds every year to plant 4,000 trees along streams to improve water quality along those streams and improve fish habitat. We receive funds from this group. We get a check from Singapore, and all of our reports go to France. So that's a pretty exciting one. It's a little unusual for us to have international funding, but we were their first North American project.
No kidding.
So, yeah.
Wow.
And to talk about grants for a second, they're great and we love them, but they are a lot of work for volunteer organizations, and even for Hilary. You have to apply for the grant, which is a lot of work. Then you have to administer the grant, and you have to do reports on the grant quarterly, and then you have to do a final report on the grant. So there's a lot of administrative work that goes along with trying to get those funds into your organization. So it can be a burden for smaller organizations to have somebody that can even write a grant that is accepted. And we've had very good luck with it, but it is a lot of administrative work to get those funds, so you can do the in lake or in watershed work with those funds.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned earlier that conservation districts in areas that have county government are usually part of county government. So we are not. We're technically a municipality, which doesn't really mean anything because we cover multiple towns. So that makes us, it's very...
Sorry. Okay. That's my phone, ladies and gentlemen.
So as Jerremy mentioned, we write grants to do specific projects, but that makes it challenging to run the conservation district or to respond to the public. So if somebody walks in off the street with a question about their property and it doesn't fall under a specific grant, of course we go and respond to that, but we don't really have any resources to do that work. So yes, we have been hopeful that possibly through state government at some point we'll have funding to fund at least the district manager position so we can run the district. And then we would have grants for our staff, which would be really exciting and really change the way that we're able to respond to the public and have sort of better education and outreach programs, which are challenging to fund. Our newsletters sort of fall by the wayside because we don't have time to deal with them. But I think we would be much stronger partners and much better, much more visible to the community. If we had a little bit of funding to just do that basic work that we need to do.
Some of the nonprofits, I'm thinking of Gus Seelig, who runs the Vermont Conservation and Housing and Conservation Board, will hire a grant writer, and the salary from that comes from the grant itself, so that you sort of free your own people up to do really what they like doing anyway, out in the field, and then someone else will stay in the office and write grants and get them approved. So I don't know if that's ever in the future, but or maybe you could get together on one.
And that's the type of thing an administrator or an office assistant exactly is the type of thing you could hire if you had more funding.
Yeah. A topic I did mention a little earlier that I want to get back to is the seepage that exists. I mean, for many, many years, people would buy a cottage and on a particular lake and just go there and not worry about where their stuff was going. Some of it was just literally thrown right in the water. And very few of the municipalities around a lake would have a water system or a sewage system where they would be able to accept that. So many of them have septic systems, and in fact, the great majority probably do. And, they're only good for a certain length of time, and then they start not working anymore. Is that getting better? Are people paying a little bit more attention to that, or where are we with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think as far as Lake St. Catherine goes, we're in fairly good shape. We'll see how these, the caffeine measurements will be very interesting to see with the first year with that. But because of our decreasing phosphorus, we're hoping that that's a sign that our septics are doing okay. I know personally from neighbors that have had septic issues, there was funding from the state available. So I know a number of neighbors were able to tap into that to get help to get their system up to date. And there's also the state has a program called, it used to be called a septic social, where you'd get community members around the lake to come and listen to a presentation about septic systems. Not the greatest topic, obviously, but I think they call them wastewater. I can't remember what they're called now. But we had somebody from the state come down and gave a presentation, and it helped a lot of landowners who, because and around the lake too, you don't have the room maybe for a traditional septic system. So there are mound systems and all these other types of special systems that the state is helping folks out with and permitting, so that they can have a septic on their property.
We're talking with Hilary Solomon from the Poultney Mettowee Conservation District and Jerremy Jones from the Lake St. Catherine Association. We need to take one more break, and we will be right back.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
When you're rolling Charmin, don't you love on the party? Let's just so roll it back, everybody. Roll it back. Charmin's irresistibly soft and hella nice. The grip is always soft. It's our party vibe. So what chicks feel fine. So what? Everybody wanna touch the sky.
Charmin Ultra Soft is irresistibly soft and more absorbent, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
I feel like I'm constantly cleaning hair off my bathroom floor. At least my Swiffer Sweeper makes it easy. Sweeper heavy-duty dry cloths have ultra-thick pads to trap and lock hairs, like a hair magnet. And when I'm finished cleaning up my hair, Sweeper takes care of his too. Now the hair's gone, all thanks to Swiffer. Try Swiffer Sweeper heavy-duty dry cloths. I promise you'll love them or your money back. And also try Swiffer Sweeper Wet to make quick work of tough, sticky messes.
Hi, folks. Robert Quigley here, America's Independent, Washington, D.C. We're on the road to the White House. Folks, the Quigley team is Team America. We are the centrist problem solvers. We work from facts, evidence, experience, and expertise. We help each other. We use the tools of government to cover your back. We lift all boats. We shall slay the tyranny of the law. We need you. Our road is rocky. Our climb is steep. Our goal is a land of neighbors. Folks, every dollar you donate makes you an owner in our new cooperative America, a shareholder, if you will. Go to my website, robertquigleyforpresident.com. Find the donor box button. Team America needs your spare change. Join our team, spread the word, and together we will make it work for all of us.
Paid for and approved by Robert Quigley for president.
98.1 JJR. Hey, it's Terry J from The Morning Show. You already listen to 98.1 JJR at work. Now get paid for it. It's the 98.1 JJR $1,000 workday payday. We have 4 chances a day for you to score $1,000 cash. Just listen for the super secret keyword at 9, 11, 1, and 3, and you could be $1,000 richer. It's the 98.1 JJR $1,000 workday payday.
Cashback is not available on gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin. Hey, good morning. You're heading to the airport, right?
Yep, thanks for checking. I like the car. How long have you been a rideshare driver?
About 3 years now, but I really enjoy it.
Isn't it hard to make money these days with the price of gas being so high?
Not for me. I use Upside, the free app that gives you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get real money back when you get gas with the Upside app?
Yep, I get real cash back every time I get gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
I'll make around $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code STRONG for an extra 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank account, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code STRONG for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code STRONG.
We are back on Catamount Community Connection with our two guests of the week, Hilary Solomon and Jerremy Jones. And we want to talk a little bit more about, and forgive me because the acronym Lake WAP, I don't know what is that?
Not the best acronym, I guess. It's the Lake Watershed Action Plan that we mentioned earlier. And the Lake St. Catherine Association is, within the Lake St. Catherine watershed, we're doing a couple of innovative things that we wanted to mention to the audience. So, of course, the name watershed is in the acronym Lake Watershed Action Plan because it's not just the homes or properties along the edge of the lake that drain into the lake. It's the entire area, including the headwaters or the forested area or the streams, that drain into the lake. So it's the whole watershed that drains into the lake. And so we are going to be looking specifically at some of the forested areas in the headwaters. We have some very steep headwaters, especially in the wells. We already mentioned the roads where the road crews have gone and really made some great drainage improvements on those roads. We have Endless Brook Road and Lamb Hill Road, Sawmill Hill Road, and Dayton Hill Road that all drain eventually into Lake Champlain, but first into Lake St. Catherine. And then the other piece we're looking at are wetlands. Of course, we generally understand that areas that, runoff going into wetlands is treated and that the sediments and nutrients tend to be absorbed by the wetland. So we're looking at what % of the drainage to Lake St. Catherine is treated through a wetland. And it looks like it's significant, probably about half. So we're going out to these wetlands, we're evaluating their function, we're looking at these watersheds that drain to individual wetlands to see if they're forested, are they healthy, do they have invasive species, sort of what does the landscape look like that's draining to the wetlands? Are they being overrun by nutrients that cannot be treated? And that's making it into the lake. So that piece, I think all of those pieces aren't normally done in these lake watershed action plans. And so it's been really exciting to work on these. And we've been working with Fitzgerald Environmental Associates to develop how, and the state, we're getting a lot of technical assistance from the state, but to develop how are we going to look at these wetlands or these forest blocks or these steep headwater streams to see how they're contributing nutrients to the lake. And so it's been exciting. We're all learning a lot together as a team.
Yeah, I think for the most part, people will agree that if you go upstream as far as you possibly can and begin to change things there, when you get all the way back down to the lake, you're making a huge difference.
Right.
Versus just dealing with the cottages and immediate, buildings around the lake. So, right. Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea.
And the way that the funding has been and the way that the science has been for some of the assessments we've done in the past across the state, it's really been biased toward the valley bottoms and the larger streams, for example, and the larger wetlands. And so to be looking at these headwater streams and these, steep roads that are maintained by the towns, not by the state, in the forested areas is a little bit novel. And I think we are going to be able to make a bigger difference in those areas.
And forgot to mention, we're working with Caston University as well.
Right, yes.
Yeah, they're doing monitoring of some of these streams, and which will also be helpful for the Watershed Action Plan. And we have one area where we noticed there were some algae blooms in the lake, and that area has some high phosphorus maybe coming from that inlet right there. So we can try to figure out why that's happening, where it's coming from, and what we can do to try to fix it so that doesn't happen. So that's all the exciting stuff that we'll be able to do as part of this 3-year project.
I want to mention again, because I think it is important that Hilary's group is non-regulatory. So they're not going to come to a particular place and fine somebody for not doing what they are supposed to be doing. This is all a free service for the landowner, and it's intended to help things. And I think that, again, that's why in most cases, if a farmer, and I'm in the Senate Ag Committee, so we're dealing with a lot of phosphorus runoff from agricultural fields that are right next to a body of water. So we've, over the years, the agency responsible for that, whether it's DEC or Ag, will go to a particular farm and make sure that they comply. And sometimes there's a little pushback, as you might imagine, because this is the way we've been doing it for, my grandfather did it this way. And I understand that. But your group is different because you don't have that regulatory function. And I think it's important to remember that. If people want to get a hold of either of you, Jerremy Jones or Hilary Solomon, before we run out of time, we ought to be able to direct them to whether it's a phone call or a website, or I guess you can snail mail them still, right?
Yeah, so for the Lake St. Catherine Association, you can find us at lakestcatherine.org, so lakestcatherine.org. And we're also very active on Facebook, keeping folks up to date with all the latest news on Lake St. Catherine. That's facebook.com/Lake St. Catherine Association. And Saint is ST.
Yeah, I mean, I Googled it here. I just wrote in Lake St. Catherine and it came up. So you don't even have to remember whether it's .org or .com or .anything. And I think there are 14 conservation districts. So you must be really up there in terms of the hierarchy. I mean, you said you began in 2004?
Yeah, so I started in 2004 as the watershed coordinator, actually, for the bi-state. So Poultney Mettowee watershed, there was a partnership between the Washington County Soil and Water Conservation District in New York and the Poultney Mettowee Conservation District in Vermont. And I worked on projects that crossed state lines, which was pretty exciting, actually. I got to meet a lot of people. And then I took a couple of years off. I had a couple kids and stayed home for a couple of years and came back as a water quality specialist just for the Poultney Mettowee Conservation District. And in 2014 became the district manager.
And I did the same thing when we were getting ready for the show here. I just typed in Vermont Association of Conservation Districts and bang, there it is. So they can always use that to get a hold of you. You also have a physical presence now in Poultney.
That's so exciting. Thank you for bringing that up. We so actually the Poultney Mettowee Conservation District is the oldest conservation district in Vermont. We're 80 years old. Actually 83 years old now. And, the conservation districts came out of the sort of the Dust Bowl era. And the idea was to be a peer-to-peer resource, to share innovative new technologies and to help maintain water quality, soil health, keep stream banks from eroding, that type of thing. But we've never had a permanent office. A lot of times we are co-housed with the Natural Resource Conservation Service, which is the federal USDA-funded group that provides grants to farmers. But we are not co-housed with the Rutland office, so we have been on our own, floating around. We were at Green Mountain College for quite a while, but when the college closed, we were just renting an office, and now we have our own office, thanks to the legislature and a very generous allocation that we received. It's a great office. We love it. We sublet to Slate Valley Trails, so we have a really nice relationship with them, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah. Easy to find. It's right on Main Street in Poultney. You can't miss it. If you're headed toward what was Green Mountain College, it's on the right-hand side. And, we had a little event there at some point, I guess, the grand opening. Jerremy and I went to the Wells Village School earlier this year and gave a little presentation. You sort of have to tailor your presentation to the people that are listening. I'm not sure I did a very good job with that. I'm a little bit more used to talking to people that are a little older, I guess. So, but I'm sure you were a big hit. I had to leave before you started, but that was fun.
Yeah, it was really fun, and I don't know if I did any better, or not that we didn't do great. I think that the kids were great. I was actually really happy, and I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. They asked such great questions.
They do, and
it's just you when I was creating the presentation, I was kind of concerned how technical should I make it, but they know they ask the right questions. They and they care.
Yeah,
which was really cool to see. And education is just a big part of it. Like you had mentioned, non-regulatory, and a lot of it's education. We want to go out and help people and help them learn about these issues. And so one quick project I'll mention that we're really excited about is our local librarian, Gina, approached us a little while back, a couple years ago, about this program called Libraries Love Lakes. And so we applied with the Lake Champlain Basin Program, and we were able to get that grant funded. We had a great day at the lake for kids and families. They came in, she made kits with all kinds of educational materials. And we actually Gina created because of the grant, a section of the library that was dedicated to lake stewardship, and it's called the Lake St. Catherine Collection. So this year we really went for it. She wrote a fantastic grant, and this year we're going to have 4 events, 3 small ones, and they're all going to be themed around the seasons. So our first event will be in February, and it'll be winter themed. Then we'll have a spring event. Then we'll have a big event in summer, hopefully at the state park, Lake St. Catherine State Park, where we'll have hopefully a lot of people that'll come and enjoy the park and learn all about lake stewardship, and then a fall event. And then the other big component of this is we're going to make a watershed model of Lake St. Catherine that'll actually hold water, so we can actually put stuff in the watershed. So where the streams would be, where the mountains would be, and we can show how the water will flow into the lake, and what can happen very far away from the lake that can actually have an impact directly on the lake. Yeah. So we're really excited about that. So there'll be more information about that as we start planning those events.
Okay.
Really exciting.
Any last minute? We've got probably like 4 minutes left. So anything else we want to talk about?
I was just going to say it'll be really nice to have a model of the watershed. So when we're doing the watershed action plan, we can put little pins and stickies and flags, and people can come and see if they live in the watershed actually for the lake itself. If not, they might live in the Wellsbrook watershed or the Poultney River watershed, which are also great places to live. But it'll be a really great tool.
Yeah, it's going to be a great resource, and really credit Gina at the library for that idea, and writing a fantastic grant to get that for the lake and the community.
So we're heading into the fall and then winter. I assume winter is a little bit quieter time, certainly on the lake it must be, although there's probably fishing out there and snowmobiles and stuff like that. Do you sort of kick back a little bit more too, Hilary, or not?
Well, I used to think that I did, but we have so many things happening right now where the Poultney Mettowee Conservation District is part of the South Lake Clean Water Service Provider. So we're offering quarterly grant rounds now to people who, to entities who are doing clean water projects that's specifically tailored toward phosphorus reduction for the Lake Champlain, trying to reduce phosphorus and the cyanobacteria blooms in Lake Champlain. So that's been very busy, and that goes all year round. And it seems there are more and more sort of statewide meetings, and I think the idea of like unifying programs around the state has become very popular recently, which is great. But it means a lot more meetings in the wintertime as we try to sort of unify between the different organizations that offer water quality assistance, the type of outreach or the type of programming we offer for stormwater, for example, projects where we're working with private landowners, or we're trying to build our forest lands outreach and trying to figure out which projects could be funded through these new Clean Water Service Provider funds. These are non-regulatory projects, and a lot of the forest projects fall under the AMPs, which are the management guidelines, for logging jobs. So there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that happens in the winter too, a little less field work. But even then, sometimes I find myself in January out in the field, in the barn, and or out soil sampling in December because it warmed up a little bit and we had a couple fields we still had to get soil samples on. So, yeah.
You mentioned you're the oldest conservation district. I got a feeling you're probably the busiest too, but I could be wrong.
We're pretty busy.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it. Well, we've got a couple of minutes left, so any last thoughts about anything, really?
I'm sure Hilary would say the same. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about these issues, and it's all about trying to get the word out. So doing things like this are really important to try to get the word out, educate folks. We all love our natural resources, but we really have to work to maintain them. They can't take care of themselves with everybody wanting to use them and enjoy them. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and there's folks like the association and the conservation districts that are working to preserve and protect these natural resources for all Vermonters.
Yeah, I'm sure, as is true with most things in life, you start at a particular place, whether it's 100 years ago or 200 years ago, and what's accepted, what's normal, what's encouraged in some ways is different then it's different now, certainly, than it was then. We didn't think about the same sorts of things that might destroy the environment. So it is a good thing. And you're right. Neither group scolds people for not doing the right thing. It's more of an education thing. Hey, look, this is what the data and the science shows could make it better. If you're interested, we're here to help you. If you're not, we'll still like you. But, it's probably a good idea if you jump on board and, if we're going to have grandkids that enjoy this down the road, we need to take care of it now and make sure that we're doing the right thing. So that's where I'm at.
That's great. Yeah. And
okay.
And it's funny that the Conservation District has been around for a while, and we when we moved recently into our new office, we found boxes of old photographs, which were amazing. But there were pictures of the CCC crews, and there would be notes on the back from the district supervisors who'd been out to visit with the folks at the CCC crew work camps. And they were straightening the Wells Brook, and that was one of their jobs that the government was paying for during the Great Depression, was straightening the Wells Brook. So we might not do that anymore, but there's certainly a legacy, a rich legacy around here of that interaction that we have with our natural resources.
Yep, lessons learned. Okay, Hilary Solomon from the Conservation District and Jerremy Jones, thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully we'll have you back at some point.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.